Hi guys, today we're going to walk through some 5 tips that I use that really help save multiple hours per day while I'm coding my app called Flow State that I want to be able to share with you. At the time I'm recording this at 5 a.m., so hopefully it makes sense. For the first tip, it's really important to be able to have a master's rule set that both Claude Code and then Cursor Agent follow appropriately and automatically. Additionally, as instructions is helpful to walk through step by step that you'll refer to with each prompting, voice coding, as well as prompt structure that we'll talk through, and then my usual coding flow with some tips that'll also be helpful, and my number one golden rule. Finally, we're going to end and be able to compare as a bonus using Claude Code versus Composer using kind of my coding flow. But jumping right in to be able to examine the general custom rules for the MD file that I use. This is for Cursor. I can give it a link below in the Google Docs, but I use it here specifically to reference instructions MD file. And this is what I go through step by step. This is a detailed master plan of exactly the goals of the app, as well as the step-by-step build process that's really helpful and efficient in structuring and planning out each and every prompt. Secondly, is when we go and we look at now the master rule set for Claude Code that you actually can additionally integrate into your codebase to allow Claude Code to follow every single time. You can either call it with the @ symbol or it automatically ready references it, which is really helpful. Such as core rules as well as being referenced in Claude Code. This has really helped, so I don't have to be able to reiterate the prompt structure that I want, as well as things for it to be able to reference as well. The next huge and third game changer is actually using voice coding. I use 2 different things. Actually, if you use ChatGPT, the app on Mac, you could be able to voice dictate and then instantly add that into your search bar or whatever you need. That's really helpful. But a huge other game changer that's actually free is using Willow. And you just press FN twice and it instantly is able to add in any voice to text that you want. The fourth really helpful tip is actually understanding proper prompt structure, and I think it's really misunderstood. Here, as you can see, I'm going to be able to walk through being able to use 2 different prompts with Cursor and Claude Code, but my normal flow is always giving it context, analyzing the problem, the current files it touches, and my desired outcome. More specifically, I have my already prompt structure in both the Claude MD file as well as Cursor, so I can be able to automatically reference it, and I don't specifically have to be able to type out the context problem because it already knows. I think another really helpful thing is describing your role, but I already do these in these files that are automatically referenced, but you can specifically call them when you're giving a prompt. So it just basically saves manual time of either typing or having to give voice to text as well. Okay, so additional tips that really boost your prompt that I think are extra add-ons that Claude Code and these AI models are really able to understand better is when you're hyper specific to specifically the file that you're going to touch, as well as the exact amount of code. A really helpful example is being able to reference different projects or open source projects on GitHub to be able to have exact, explicit code example that you're looking. For example, in SwiftUI, when I build animations, it's really helpful to be able to have a reference of the exact animation you're looking for. Secondly, this is where visual context comes into play in being able to explain exactly how something looks. I found that actually Claude Code with the artifacts works really well in building this, as well as you can look at Figma, but overall, when you're building these animations, for example, this graph animation that I'm building, it's really helpful to have a reference, for example, of going to different apps that you like for the onboarding, which I did. I referenced CalAI. They have a really good onboarding system and be able to reference those. The third and really helpful tip, though, more so when you're using agent mode in Cursor, is to start small and expand. Too often trying to one-shot a multi-phase plan is really dangerous as it'll miss certain features, or you'll have to end up going back to version control to be able to reiterate the whole entire process. In carpentry, when I did it, as the rule goes, measure twice and cut once. Okay, as you probably noticed, while it's time of getting these tips, Composer for Cursor has been able to execute on the prompt and plan to be able to produce its style change. And you can see here pretty shortly, here is the graph for screen 5 of the onboarding. I honestly don't like it at all. It has to have a lot of refinement, and I'm actually, as I'm recording this, coming back and I've made a lot of changes. But just for the experiment, I'm going to obviously here going through the onboarding to be able to test it out and see how it looks, and then we're going to be able to hop on over and give the exact same prompt and plan to Cloud Code and just be able to compare the differences, specifically for animation graph in SwiftUI. Now, as you can see, we're going to be able to let Cloud Code be able to take a hit at the prompt, the same one used for Composer. And while that's working around it, we're going to be able to talk about my prompt flow that I'm able to use. It's pretty straightforward, but basically I always start with the instructions MD doc, go through which step I'm on, and fill in use voice to text to be able to give more context if needed, follow the prompt structure that I have, and then another tip that I always use is using plan mode for Cloud Code or for the agent. I find that there's just a lot more improvement rate of success with being able to properly implement when you go phase by phase in a prompt and also structure. So execute, and then we'll test, see if it works, iterate if not, and then commit it to GitHub and repeat that whole process again. But this is where the golden rule really comes into play that is implemented into each one of these. And that golden rule is to ask questions until you're at least 95% certain what to build. This has been a game changer in my prompts, as both Cloud Code but then Cursor agent will be able to ask me questions back in order to guarantee exactly how my prompt is formatted, and this has been super helpful. Next, as we're looking here, this is the final result of what we got from Cloud Code, and honestly, I'm still not satisfied with this, but here's a comparison of running the two prompts, and we've perfected and refined it more. And this has been an interesting comparison, but I hope these 5 tips have helped to be able to code more. If you want to be able to see actually the finished product of this user flow and the graph, check out and press the link below in my app. I just published on the App Store. It would mean so much if you were able to see it. Talk to you guys later. Bye.